Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a little bit different of a video. I had a customer request. I'm always used to saying that when I'm referring to meat cutting. So I had a request on YouTube to answer a question. He asked me, I forgot the guy's name, the different aspects of being a meat cutter. So I'm not sure how long of a video this is going to be. I've got a couple bullet points here of certain parts of my job. So the first one is obviously cut meat. So the first thing what we do when we get to the meat shop in the morning is, well, what I do anyway, depending on my schedule. The first thing I do is I'll run the bloom room, which is the room that we keep all the meat that didn't get worked out from the day before. So I'll work out everything from the bloom room. They call it the bloom room because when it's sitting in there, what bloom is, referring to meat, is the age on the meat. So they call it the bloom room. When it sits there and it creates age and it gets darker, that's just what they call it. The meat doesn't necessarily age that much. We work product out pretty frequently. So we'll run those racks and we'll rotate as we go. So we'll run certain products and then put the newest dates on the bottom to work out the older dates. That's just how things work in the grocery business. You don't want to sell the newer stuff you just cut if we still have older product in the case. It doesn't make any sense. So that's what we do. Next thing we'll do is we'll make a cutting list. So we'll go through our case. Everything that we're light on, we'll write down however many pieces of meat that we need to cut to be able to fill that hole. And then we'll also make a list on product that's on sale that we know we're going to sell a lot of. So, you know, if we have bottom round on sale for carne asada, I might sell maybe 6 cases of those for a thin cut carne asada. So I'll write that on my list. So I'll write a list based on all my holes and the product that I assume that we're going to be selling that day. And everything that we don't sell that day gets put back in the bloom room and gets worked out first thing in the morning. So everything gets cycled out, rotated, and yeah. So the next thing is when we're cutting the meat, we'll trim the product, but we don't over trim. We leave enough room for profit margin. So we trim some fat, but not all fat. Obviously, some things need to be leaner than others, but other things, people like like a 1/4 inch fat on their New Yorks or ribeye, or what other kind of grilling steak. On tri-tip, we'll leave a little bit of a fat cap on that, top sirloin. So that profit margin will give you obviously more profit. And if you trim off that, then you're losing all that profit. Just goes right in the garbage cans. You always want to cut the meat first. That's not the rule, but for the majority of the time you want to cut your steaks first, lay your steaks flat on the table, and trim off any excess fat that you might have. Next thing is throw in the loads. So first, what you want to do is separate all of the meat on the load. So you'll have chicken mixed with pork, beef, different other products, things like ham or ham steaks, those kinds of things. You want to separate those based on the location that they go. So you want to have a 6-wheeler full of your chicken product. You have a 6-wheeler full of you have a little cart for your ham and those other products. We don't really sell a lot of them, so they're typically a smaller cart that we put those on. And maybe another cart for your hole in the bag pork shoulders. We'll sell those. Probably go through like at least 2 or 3 cases a day on those. So we'll have a big 6-wheeler full of those. We have to price up and put on what we call tall boys, which are the racks that you slide into the trays that you slide into these racks. There's like a 7 or 8 tier rack. They fit all these racks on. And we'll just put all the meat on there and put it in the bloom room. So the next thing is, and you want to rotate everything comes down to rotation. You want to rotate all of your new product. So you have some older chicken on a 6-wheeler. You want to make sure all that stuff gets worked out before you throw the day of freight, obviously, because you want the older stuff to sell first. And all of your beef you want to throw on your beef wall, the pork on the pork wall, and then all the chicken, ham, everything gets worked out out on the floor. Next thing is frozen load. I don't really have to go into that because it's basically the same as the fresh meat load. So you just basically put all of your stuff on a big 6-wheeler and throw it on your frozen shelf. The next thing on here is price up product. So I think that's where I was at before I got a phone call. So what I would do is bounce back and forth. So I'm cutting a hole and there's nobody to wrap it, and I need that product out in the case right now. So I'll bounce over to wrapping. I'll go ahead and wrap that product, but before I do that, I'll have to look up, I'll have to type the way our automatic wrapper works. Is you have to type in the description of the product that you're wanting to price up, or there's a little cheat sheet on the side that gives you the code number, but everything is so jammed in there that I can't find it easy enough, so I just opt to just punch in the name of the product and get the code that way. So you get the code, you run it through the automatic wrapper, it wraps it by itself, tags it by itself, and it runs it down a little set of wheels, and you go pick it up, put it on your rack. It's super quick. Back in the olden days, I'm only 37, but I've been doing this almost 20 years. What I would have to do is hand wrap everything instead of, we'd have a scale that you'd put the product on, and then you'd go ahead and wrap it by hand, put it on a heat pad, go back and forth, make sure everything is nice and sealed, and then hand tag everything. It was such a pain. It took forever. So I'm glad I have this machine. Next thing on my list is customer service. Obviously, that's one of the big ones. So what I have here is help people get the product they need. That's the major thing. They'll ring my buzzer and they'll ask me if I have a certain product, and I'll have to go out there, show them exactly where it is, or sometimes if I'm lazy, I'll just point down. It's down aisle 17, all the way down to your right. Or if it's like a certain beef or pork product, I'll have to go and physically show them. Next thing on the list is, I already got that one, recommend cooking methods. So some people might want to smoke something and they want to know what's good on the smoker, and just about everything you can imagine is good on a smoker. So I have to recommend certain ways to cook things to customers. It's crazy because you would think a lot of people would know how to cook certain things, but yeah, it's crazy. But not everyone knows everything about cooking, so the last one in that category is resolve customer complaints. So sometimes if a customer buys something, they're not satisfied with it, and then they come back and they complain, which I've been working at this new company now for like 3 months, and we haven't had a single one of those. So I think a lot of those customer complaints will go up to customer service or to the store director, and they handle those complaints and deal with them. But in the past, I've dealt with them. Somebody's unhappy with something, and I know almost for a fact that's the way that they personally cooked it. But you can't tell them that. You can't say, no, you cooked it wrong. You can't say that. You have to go get them a new one, and then hope they don't mess that one up. Or sometimes it's a legitimate thing. Like sometimes there's like an open pack, and then a product goes bad before the shelf life on the package says, and so they bring it back. If it's no good, and then we have to replace that. So, or we'll have to deal with maybe another employee treated that customer poorly, and then they want to come back and complain about it. So you have to make it right with them, and a lot of different things in the customer service in the customer service field that we have to deal with. So, next thing on the list is cleaning tools in the department. So, at the end of the day, or in between cutting animal certain species, so in between every species, you want to clean and sanitize your cutting boards. You don't want any cross-contamination because that will affect mostly your beef. Your beef is really susceptible to any kind of pork, lamb, chicken. It's going to make that beef turn bad a lot quicker, and it's going to cause a lot of bacteria to infect that piece of meat, and that's definitely not what you want. So some departments will do that, others won't, but that's definitely a health code violation. You definitely don't want to do that. If you get caught, that's a kind of I believe that's a pretty big fine. So you want to clean your cutting boards, you want to sanitize them, or either that or just flip them over, wipe them down where they have the creases in between the cutting boards to make sure everything is nice and sanitary, then go and cut your other product. Everything is nice and soaped down. You want to let everything soap in the foaming cleaner that your department has, and then they also have what's called block whitener. It's basically just a like a thick bleach product, and it's usually like a I don't know, like a turquoise green color, and you would just put that in a little blob on your cutting board and scrub that in, and then let it sit. Because it's a bleach, you want to let it sit for like, I don't know, I usually let mine sit for like 10 or 15 minutes, move on to something else, then come back and then hose my department down. And then after you hose everything down, you want to sanitize it with your sanitizer, make sure all the bacteria is killed off, everything is nice and coated with that sanitizer. And you want to let that sanitizer air dry. You don't want to hand dry it. You wouldn't want to, you really wouldn't have the time to do that anyway with like a cutting board or your anything. You just angle your cutting boards down, let them naturally drain off all that water, let those air dry and sanitize properly. And then lastly, before you leave the department, you want to clean your knives. You want to scrub your knives down really well. They're going to have a lot of protein buildup and a lot of bacteria in your knives and in your cutting gloves. So you want to soap those down, scrub them, let those sit in like a bleach water. The one item I would not ever put in your bleach water is your steel. I don't have one handy at the moment, but your little honing steel, you know, the one where you just, you know, you straighten your knife blade out with it. If you don't know what that is, that steel is really susceptible to rust. So if you stick that honing rod or steel inside of a bleach solution, that's going to rust within a minute. You'll come back and your honing rod will just be completely covered in rust. So the way to fix that is you just take a like a Brillo pad or a Scotch-Brite pad is what I meant to say, or even steel wool, and you can just kind of go up and down the honing rod to clean all that rust off, rinse it off really well. But that's one way to damage your honing rods and then cause future rusting. So I think it takes off some coating on there, and I've done that quite a few times in the past. And lastly is writing your orders. So before, it's usually the managers who do this, or the second or third in command. Usually they'll have like a mid-shift, and they'll write their orders based on what they're low on. And most meat departments nowadays are day-to-day orders, so every single day of the week they get a load in. So they don't want to order too much product because they want everything to come in with a good shelf life. They don't want to be backed up on product. So the last thing you want to do is order, 10 cases of something that you're probably only going to sell like 2 cases of the next day. So anyway, guys, I hope that answered your question, and if that's something that you're wondering what the aspects of meat cutter are, I hope that answered your question. And if you guys like this video and you want more, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and watch my past videos. I've got a lot of videos on cutting now, and I really appreciate you guys' views, and I will see you guys on the next video.